This is the day we visit Disney's Epcot Center. Epcot stands for Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow. You are looking at the largest structure of its kind in the world. This is the world's largest geodesic sphere, not dome, but sphere. It started out less ambitiously as a dome, the largest geodesic dome at that, but happily the bolder vision prevailed. The sphere is some 18 stories high, taller than Freeport State Bank, and 180 feet in diameter. That's more than a half of as long as a football field. It weighs 1 million pounds. The idea of Spaceship Earth is better portrayed by a sphere because you have to go up into it to see the fascinating program inside about communication. And because it is a sphere, you get the effect of actually going up into Spaceship Earth instead of walking through a door and a side. All around in this section, there are exhibits for Future World. I, by myself, came back a second day to see this because it deserves one day by itself. I spent most of my first day in the World Showcase, which we'll see later in the program. Kodak has a wonderful display in its building, Journey into Imagination. Inside these various Future World pavilions are exhibits. Some are very artistic and colorful. Let's now look at the history of transportation, the wheel. Next, to visit the World Showcase area, you can take boats across the lake, or you can take the free double-decker buses from one bus stop to another. The Canadian Pavilion has this French Gothic building, which they call Hotel du Canada. I went to the Moosehead Mine area because I wanted to see a 9-screen production that uses 9 cameras and 9 screens in 360-degree positions. So the same thing is happening all around you at once. They call it Circle Vision 360. Where you exit, they have a miniature version of Victoria Gardens on Vancouver Island. This is TV personality Michael Young. He used to be on Kids Are People Too, and now he does a program on the Disney Channel on cable. We are between the Canadian and Mexican Pavilion. In the background across the lake is Italy's Campanile, or bell tower. We're going to visit the Mexican Pavilion next. Along the lake, they have an informal cafe with good Mexican food. Across the street from the cafe, on the left, is an imposing pyramid temple, rising 36 feet in a series of steps. Look at the huge serpent's heads which stick out on the sides of the temple. Notice the steep flight of stairs. At the very top of the stairs would be the temple where the high priest would do their business. Inside is a market area and a boat trip through colorful canals where you see colorful displays and hear beautiful Mexican music. Let's go next to the China Pavilion. This building is a replica of the Temple of Heaven in Peking. I have visited the original in Peking 3 times, and this replica is really quite beautiful, but it's not nearly as large as the original in Peking. You get a nice view of the Temple of Heaven from the ceremonial gate here in the foreground. To get into the proper frame of mind, the Chinese would like you to contemplate on the shapes and texture of particularly lovely rocks that they have around this area. This is supposed to bring you peace and serenity and prepare you to look at this beautiful building. The phoenixes and the dragons are made with real gold leaf on the Peking Temple, but probably not here in Florida. The Temple of Heaven was for the emperor to visit and give offerings to the heavens. That would ensure a good year, they hoped. Look at the slides of the original Peking temple. Notice the difference in size, and that this one is lower to the ground. Notice the reflecting ponds, and also the lotus leaves. Contemplation on lotuses is also supposed to make you serene and at peace. Now we are inside looking up into the beautiful ceiling. See the dragon in the very center gold area? And now let's see slides of the ceiling of the original Temple of Heaven in Peking. It is much more elaborate. We again see the lotus and the unusual rocks that Chinese will go to great expense to get for their palace gardens sometimes. The emperors would send hundreds of men on 3-year expeditions to find these rocks. The China exhibit also has a spectacular 360-degree 9-screen production, which I saw twice in one day. Don't miss it. They also have a shopping area, so you can purchase jade, woven baskets, silk, silly little things, chinaware, and many other unusual things. These are funny. These masks and costumes make regular people look like giants. When I was in Changchun, China, I saw some young people dance wearing these. It's funny to see them walk. Their eyes are probably looking out of their chest area. People like to have their pictures taken with them. This is the Siamese figure, and this is the Indian one in pink. The Japanese one is in green, and notice when she walks, it's very funny. And here's a weird-looking horse. Notice it has wheels in the rear. Next, let's visit the Germany exhibit. You will see the typically red tiled roofs and the architecture of a combination of German buildings, anywhere from the 13th through the 17th century. Some of these buildings are like palaces or merchants' halls or town halls. The one directly in front of me here, in this German Platz, reminds me of a burger's house that I saw in the Römerberg Platz in Frankfurt, Germany. So these are slides then on the side screens of that building I saw in Germany. Notice the architecture used here in Florida is like real places in Germany. Next I will go into each of those openings, left and right, and I'll take slides out into the Platz. You see that statue there with a horse of St. George killing the dragon? Italy has reproduced the Venice bell tower in the Doge's palace. They have put gondolas on the Florida lagoon, but I would like to show you on the slide some real gondolas and real canals in Venice. In Venice, you can eat in an outdoor restaurant along the canal and next to the poles where they tie up the gondolas. In Venice, coke and food and corpses and everything must be taken by gondola or by boat. There's even a stop-and-go light some places, like you see on the slide on the right. We are zooming in across the Florida Lagoon to the replica of the Doge's Palace and St. Mark's Bell Tower. The slide shows you the real palace, which is much, much larger. The many statues reproduced here in Florida are like the real statues in Venice, which you now see on the left slide. The Italian area has a typical piazza, or square. This one area here is supposed to look like a food market area. Line here at Alfredo's restaurant. Now it's easy to make reservations. There are 29 touch computers throughout Epcot Center, and that makes it possible to see where there are still open reservation times. If the Italian restaurants are booked up, you can check the French restaurants on the computer. This is a typical Catholic grotto area. Across the lagoon there is the American exhibit called the American Adventure. They have built a huge Georgian architecture mansion. Inside I saw singing and works of art, but I missed all the other exhibits. There's supposed to be a marvelous 29-minute history of the United States as told by Ben Franklin and Mark Twain. In the very center of the movie is the U.S. exhibit, and now off to the right is the Japan exhibit area. See the typical castle architecture, pagoda roofs? Here's a torii gate on the lagoon. Torii gates are typically at the entrances to Japanese shrines. I will show some slides on the side screens of some Japanese pagoda roofs that are the Chinese style. Notice how heavy the Chinese style is compared to the more delicate and light Japanese style. Some Japanese palaces usually have huge stone foundations like the slides of this Florida palace. The slide on the right is the Emperor's Palace and Moat in Tokyo. The carriage on the left came out of the palace, and we were told that the Emperor might be inside. Some buildings here have Japanese-style restaurants, where you can use chopsticks if you like. Japan, like China, is known for its many gardens near their tea houses. The water in the garden symbolizes the oceans of the world. The rocks symbolize land. Shrubs symbolize forests. A carp fish flag is put outside on Boys' Day, and each son has one representing him. It symbolizes the belief that Japanese boys have to be strong like the carp, because the carp has to swim against the current sometimes and cope with their problems. When you think of love, what country do you think of? France, of course. The Florida Eiffel Tower back there is only 100 feet tall. The one on the slides is 1,000 feet tall and weighs 7,000 tons. The Paris Tower has 35 tons of paint on it, and it has swayed 4.5 inches at the top on the windiest day. This waterfall reminds me of the Champs-Élysées. You can get the flavor of Paris when you see pantomimes and see this organ grinder in his French beret, scarf around his neck, and striped shirt. The Boulangerie is a popular restaurant. That is, if you go by the length of the line. Impressions de France is also a restaurant. Paris is known for its sidewalk cafes. So here in Florida, we have French restaurants with outdoor seating. This would be a nice place to sample French cuisine on a nice Florida day, wouldn't it? If you're interested in buying wines, there's a place called Les Vins de France. Let's go to the English Pavilion area next. You're in for a delightful experience, visually, psychologically, taste-wise, and all kinds of ways. Aside from thatched-roofed Elizabethan cottages, there's Tudor architecture and Victorian. Have you noticed that fellow dressed in a court jester outfit? He's trying to get people to go into the courtyard to the left. He looks like a weather vane sometimes, a traffic cop another time, and his friend thinks he is a crazy man. Well, anyhow, this fella and a young woman, they're going to improvise various scenes, and they use people from the audience. Someone plays the king, then they get someone to play the queen. They put diapers on someone. He's supposed to be the son, the Prince of Wales. And they display a lot of humor and great personality. The skit ends in the death of the king. Then they decide that the audience should die also, because the audience respected their fine job. Most of them, or many of them, went along with the dying. So get down, they're saying. Next, I went into this miniature palace called the Toys. This animated banquet scene shows the royal family dressed to the nines. The court jesters are doing their thing. The trumpeters give the fanfare. And now it's time for a toast to the king. This Victorian castle has crenellated walls. This formal English garden separates some British pubs from some British chinaware shops. This Disney garbage man has a unique outfit. And as the sun began to set, I decided to go back to Future World, which is at the entrance surrounding Spaceship Earth. I spent the rest of the night in the Kodak building watching an excellent 3D movie and a lot of other things. This is the night view of the lighted waterfalls at the Kodak Pavilion. I also took pictures of it during the day. I prefer to look at the pictures of the falls with the colored lights on it. It's really a marvelous sight. In the Kodak Pavilion, they have an area where you can watch yourself in a TV monitor. So these kids are watching themselves on TV. Kodak is interested in colors, and so they have this colorful tunnel for you to walk through. When I went outside, it was dark already, and here we are by the beautiful sphere, Spaceship Earth, all lit up. The fountains with the lights on are especially beautiful in front of this sphere. So don't miss seeing this sight at night. You've got to stay until this time of night in order to see these beautiful lights. This is a wonderful way to end the evening at Epcot Center. The sign is going to come up pretty soon saying, "Thank you for visiting Epcot Center."